Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be going over why I sold my MSTR shares and replaced it with the new Roundhill Weekly Pay ETF MSTW. But before I get into the video, please smash that like button so the algorithm gods know that I'm here, and hit subscribe if you're new so you're alerted every time I publish a new video about stocks, investing, finance, and news. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. So for any new subscribers, any new viewers, I highly recommend you guys go check out this video right here, why I'm betting big on Bitcoin, MSTR, and yieldmax, all right? Yieldmax MSTY. And in this video, I give you my thesis for Bitcoin and why I'm including it into my portfolio, and I give you a deeper dive into the setup, okay? At a high level, this is the setup, okay? This is the setup I'm following. So I know a lot of people were asking, why didn't I just go straight into Bitcoin? Why didn't I just buy Bitcoin, right? Why complicate things? And the reason is because I need, for my own personal finance reasons, to show that I'm making some sort of income. So I decided to go with yieldmax's MSTY. This is a very popular ETF, produces a really high distribution. And basically what I do is I use the distributions from MSTY to reinvest back into MSTY. And I use it to invest into MSTR, right? MSTR common stock is used for growth. And I also use the money to invest in IBIT, okay? 33%, across the board. So that is basically the setup. Now that Roundhill came out with MSTW, right? I know some people would say, well, you're going to get rid of yieldmax's MSTY, right? And the answer is no. I'm not going to get rid of MSTY. I'm actually going to keep MSTY, and I'm going to get rid of, or I already got rid of, MSTR common stock. And I'm going to explain why. All right, but yes, I sold out of my MSTR shares and bought MSTW. All right, so let's go over the reasons why I did that. One, MicroStrategy doesn't pay a dividend. You guys know that. I know that. We all know that. All right. MicroStrategy is just, MSTR is just common stock. It doesn't pay any sort of dividend. It's not Strike. It's not Strife. It's not Stride, and it's certainly not going to be their new stock that's coming out, their perpetual preferred stock. I think it's called STRC. I don't even know what that is, stretch maybe. But anyways, it's none of those. It's just common stock. It doesn't pay a dividend. So the beauty of these weekly pay ETFs, let's say you wanted to invest in Amazon and you wanted to get a dividend. That's what these weekly pay ETFs allow you to do. You get a dividend. You're indirectly invested into, the underlier for this one, MSTW. I'm indirectly invested into MSTR, right? So not only am I going to get paid weekly, but I get amplified exposure to MicroStrategy's price movement, okay, which is really, really crazy. If it goes up 10%, I should hypothetically get a 12% return. But if it goes down 10%, well, I will go down 12%, right? Hypothetically speaking. Again, the beauty of these ETFs is that there needs to be a lot of momentum behind the stock. And if you're bullish on Bitcoin going higher this year, then why wouldn't you be bullish on MSTR also going higher this year? And, along that same vein, why wouldn't MSTW also go higher? So this is why I'm investing into MSTW and replaced MSTR common stock shares. So here's just a quick couple things about, these weekly pay ETFs for any new subscribers, anyone who's never heard of these. All right. These are going to pay you every single week. You get a weekly distribution, right? You're getting enhanced exposure, which means you're getting 120% of the price movement of the underlier, MicroStrategy. They have one for Amazon. They have one for Robinhood. They have one for Berkshire Hathaway. They have one for Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, Palantir. They have a bunch of them. So I really recommend people spend a little bit of time just going through, just to have an extra tool for the tool belt in case you want to include something like this in your portfolio. Now, there's a huge misconception. A lot of people think these are cover call ETFs, from Roundhill, these weekly pay ETFs, but these are not cover call ETFs, okay? They use a separate strategy altogether. They use something called swap agreements, okay? But, they answer it right here. Do Roundhill weekly pay ETFs sell options? No, these Roundhill weekly pay ETFs do not sell options, okay? So just something to keep in your mind. You're not getting capped upside like you would with, MSTY from yieldmax. Here is yieldmax's own product page for MSTY. And I'm not knocking them, but this is exactly what they put on there. The fund strategy, let me see if I can change this. There we go. The fund strategy will cap its potential gains if MSTR shares increase in value, meaning if MSTR was to go up in value, let's say 10%, well, MSTY will probably hypothetically go up maybe between 4 and 6%, maybe, all right? The fund strategy is subject to all potential losses if MSTR shares decrease in value. Again, if MSTR common stock was to drop 10%, MSTY is going to drop 10%. So me as the investor, I don't want that. Well, I do because I'm obviously investing into this, but if I had to choose between MSTR, MSTY, and MSTW, if I could only choose one, I would absolutely go with MSTW because I want uncapped gains. Okay, this is the key. I want uncapped gains. All right. So just a little bit about the product page and a little bit about this ETF. All right. So again, it's coming out of from Roundhill, and it just came out. It came out July 24th, 2025. Very low AUM because again, this is brand new. However, I think this is going to start to gain more popularity. There's been a huge demand for, this particular ETF. So we'll see how much AUM this gets, how much investor demand this gets. But again, there's other popular ones out there too, from yieldmax, from Defiance, from not Granite Shares, from IMST, from Bitwise. So there's a couple other options out there. But again, I decided to replace my MSTR shares with this one. I'm still going to hold my MSTY shares. So this, section of the portfolio is going to be kind of like an overdrive because it's going to have all this type of, distribution income coming in. All right. The other cool thing I like is that this actually holds common shares of MSTR. Most of these, high yield ETF products, they don't really hold the common shares. All right. So again, I think the big deal is that it actually holds the underlier, until my opinion changes on that. All right. So this again is going to be paying out every single week. And one last thing about this is that it is a very expensive ETF. You're going to be charged a 99 basis point expense ratio. Now, most of these high yield products, they come with that 99 basis point expense ratio anyways. Even from other reputable fund managers out there, you have Granite Shares, you have Defiance, you have IMST, you're going to be paying a pretty hefty expense ratio for these products. All right. So just something to keep in your mind. So we have earnings coming up for MSTR. So again, depending on how you feel about MSTR and what you think, again, I think we could probably see new highs for MSTR this year. And the reason is because of Bitcoin. Okay, that is simply the reason. If MSTR is a leverage play on Bitcoin, and if you are bullish on Bitcoin, then you should be bullish on MSTR. And by extension, MSTR-linked income ETFs, IMST, MSTY. For me, it's going to be MSTY and MSTW. And, you have the other two. You have MSII from Rex Shares and MST from Defiance and IMST from Bitwise, all right, or other three. All right, so the question is going to be, how is this going to stack up against the other competitors? All right, how is this going to actually do against the other competitors? I know people are going to ask that. We don't have performance data. What we can do is take a best guess estimate. And the one thing that is available to everybody or amongst the competitors is NVIDIA. Okay, so we're going to just use NVIDIA as kind of our test dummy here. Okay, so I have NVII from Rex Shares. I have NVDY from Yieldmax, NVYY from Granite Shares, and NVDW from Roundhill. So this is the return profiles or only the price return. Okay. This is if you took the distributions and spent it on, booze, liquor, and casinos and, a bunch of lottery tickets, right? This is if you did not reinvest the dividend. Okay. So NVDW actually returned 24.66%. NVYY from Granite Shares returned 7.72%. NVDY returned 11.77%. Again, NVDY is from Yieldmax. And then NVII from Rex Shares returned 26.10%. So right here, I know people are going to say, well, why don't you just go with Rex Shares? They're doing better than Roundhill. And that would be true, except if you look at total return. Okay, if you look at total return, it paints a different picture. NVDW is actually outperforming NVII by a small margin of 2%, or almost 2.3%. Okay, so NVDW returns 34.37%, NVYY 24.7%, NVDY 23.6%, and NVII from Rec Shares, 32.02%. Okay, and I only started this since May 28th because that's when all of these ETFs were available and on the market. So again, we have limited data, but you can kind of surmise that, you know, MSTW is probably going to be really close to Rec Shares MSII. So let's see how all of these MSTR products, you know, compete with each other. All right. So we're going to start with the price return. Okay. So again, we're starting when all of these were available back in June 4th. All right. So again, we have very limited data, but here we can see MSTY had a negative 4.19% return. MSII from Rec Shares had a 4.53% return. MSII, they do half cover call strategy with half leverage, you know, so you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. And then you have IMST, which and MSTY, they're pretty much vanilla cover call ETFs. But IMST returned 2.93%, and then MST, which uses leverage and credit swaps in their income strategy, they returned negative 0.55%. Okay. So if we increase that to total return, we can see that MSTY returned 8.7%, MSII returned 10.35%, IMST returned 6.74%, MST returned 9.28%. Okay, because again, MST is using that leverage, so is MSII. So I would probably predict that MSTW would probably be somewhere around, you know, MSII and MST's return. All right, somewhere around those returns between maybe 9 to 10%. All right, maybe a little more outperformance over MSII. Again, we don't know because we need more performance data, but just basing it off of, you know, the NVIDIA ETFs out there that are available, NVII and NVDW do trade pretty close to each other. So again, there's nothing wrong with any of these ETFs. They all fit a different strategy. They all fit a different investor. All right. So something to keep in the back of your minds when choosing which one you want to go with. All right. Okay. So one last item, because I know people might bring this up, especially on Seeking Alpha. It is hard to find a good tool to compare ETFs against each other, because their data is either inaccurate or slightly accurate, right? I haven't found a tool that's 100% accurate, because even in Seeking Alpha, it shows NVDW as the Investment Manager Series Trust 2 trader. But if you click on this and you go through it, some of the data matches up with NVDW from Roundhill. So again, I had to use this as the comparison. If you put in NVW, which it used to be, that used to be the ticker, it does pull it up, but it's missing a bunch of, you know, return performance data. Okay, so we're going to use Dividend Channel. Dividend Channel is, again, still iffy. It does have some inaccurate data for some, you know, ETFs. So again, you have to take this performance data with a grain of salt. But we're gonna play with NVDW and NVDY, you know, from yieldmax, and we can see the return profiles right here. Again, NVDW is outperforming NVDY, you know, since inception. All right, so they're basically pitting these two against inception. If we use NVII again from Rec Shares, you will see that they trade actually pretty decently close to each other. So here you guys can see, I hope you guys can see, they actually trade really, really close to each other. So again, using this as kind of the example, I can probably draw a conclusion that MSTW is going to trade very close, if not a little bit above NVII. So, you know, take this all with a grain of salt and kind of just come to your own conclusions, do your own research. There's tons and tons of ETF comparison tools out there. These are the only two that come to mind right now. All right, so just want to show you guys the positions. All right, so I have 80 shares of MSTW right now as of this moment. Again, I sold all of my MSTR common stock shares and purchased this yesterday. And then I still hold all of my MSTY. All right, I still have 2,426 shares of MSTY. And, you know, I know we're going to get paid twice in August. So again, that'll just be more money to put towards, you know, this trifecta strategy, the holy trinity right here. And again, now that MSTW is being added to this portfolio and it pays every single week, I'll be able to use that income to juice up the returns for MSTY, reinvest back into MSTW, and use some of that money to invest into IBIT. So I do pretty much like a 33% across the board. I might switch it up. I can use that dividend however I want to, as a tactical allocation tool. So anyways, guys, I've been speaking a lot. I hope this video was very, very entertaining. I hope you guys got a lot of value from it. Kind of understanding, kind of the thought process of how I'm looking at these ETFs. Again, I really like these weekly pay ETFs. I'm not paid or sponsored by Roundhill or anything. So you got to be careful. Do your own research, of course, all the time. But what I think is really cool about these ones, at least in my opinion, just my mind, is that if you want to invest in any of these, right? AMD, Apple, Amazon, Broadcom, Berkshire Hathaway, Hood, and they don't pay a dividend, well, you can consider this ETF that will pay a dividend, and you get almost direct, if not a little bit more direct exposure to the underlier. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I will see you guys in the next video. You guys have a great day.